Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome all of you for this session on political science and international relations. I have some agenda for today's workshop, okay? What I think usually are the usual queries of students. Still, I would request all of you to come up with as many questions as possible, and not only throughout the session, but you should have some questions in the beginning also. I hope you have certain questions. How many of you have decided to take this subject as your optional? Already decided. Okay. And rest of you are in doubt. And your doubt is with respect to which other subject? That is also not clear. It may be with respect to public administration, it may be with respect to sociology, it may be with respect to philosophy, right? Or history maybe, I'm not sure. Okay, so what shall we do today? One thing we have to discuss is about what all is there in this subject. What are you going to study? Have you people seen the syllabus? You have seen the syllabus? And I think it is quite clear from the syllabus as far as political science and IR is concerned. It is clear mostly from the syllabus that what all is there. But still it needs to be put under certain perspectives, under certain framework, because what is expected out of you, what all you are supposed to know and what kind of understanding you need to develop, this first and foremost will depend how well you are understanding the syllabus and its content, right? So that is one thing that we have to do. In fact, most of our time today will get into that. Not only that, I'm going to discuss syllabus with you, I will try to establish certain framework which will start bringing some kind of understanding for you about political science and international relations. Don't take this session only as a workshop. There is going to be certain learning also as part of this session today, because we may discuss few concepts also. I may have certain questions from you, because I hope that obviously someone who is opting for political science and international relations would obviously be having some interest in politics. If you don't have interest in politics, then you will develop interest in politics just because you are learning this subject. But that doesn't mean that in case if you clear civil services, then you quit and later on join politics. But that also happens, right? A lot of people had right from the beginning this ambition of getting into politics later on. That's why they are entering into civil services, and then later on they will explore the scope of some more public service. So in that case, obviously this particular subject is going to help, right? So will you be asking questions or shall I ask questions from you? Do you have any questions in your mind, like you are here with certain questions, or you have with all the answers there in your mind? Yes. All other centers also, you can easily put your questions, okay, whatever questions. I know all your questions would be like, what shall be the approach of study, what are the books to be studied, what sources should be there, how much time to devote, how does it help overall, how does it help in the GS paper, right, how difficult or easy it is, isn't it? These are the questions, and many more. But still I want you to speak. What shall happen in the class is a lot of interaction, right? There should be a lot of questions from your side, because you know why? How does it help? If you will ask question, will it help or not? How will it help? If you will ask questions in the class, how will it help? Say anything. You can even say that it will not help at all. We will not be asking questions. Reinforce your learning. Okay, good, very good. Maybe your question will tell me that how much are you understanding? Yes. Yeah, someone who has the same question but he's not able to ask, so you are representing the entire class when you are asking the question. This itself is political actually, because you are representing other people's interest. That's what political is. More than that, a question is an opportunity for me to explain more, right? If you will ask more questions, then I will bring in more dimensions. I will have as many dimensions already there in explanation, but it will give me an opportunity to dig deeper into more dimensions through those questions. It will always help. Okay? And one more thing I want to tell all of you, though many of you would be comfortable with the language, with the medium, right? Some people may not be as comfortable also. I have seen that some people these days, they have started expecting that the medium of communication could be bilingual or other things, but here we maintain and we are very clear about this fact that if you are writing the exam in the English medium, there has to be as much communication in English as possible. Because this itself is an opportunity to learn. Whatever I will speak in the class, it should provide more opportunity for you to learn even the language, even the expression. And you should be conscious about everything that is being spoken in the class. We will write a lot. I will write almost everything on the board in the form of well-structured frameworks so that all your final notes are prepared in the class itself. You are not supposed to make any notes by yourself. Notes will be there, will be prepared in the class itself. Along with that, there will be certain supplementary readings which I will suggest to you. Because if this framework is clear, everything will fall in place. Are you getting my point? Right? So, will you start putting up some more questions? Are you open for that? Maybe you can ask me questions in between also. But when you people have walked in over here, when you people have walked in, how, okay, there's a question by Raj, is how should we approach towards international? I will tell you first, let's see what is there in international relations. One thing is there, like one question from my side is that if you have seen the syllabus of political science and IR, and if you have seen the syllabus of some other optionals also, whether it is sociology, anthropology, or geography, or any other subjects, how political science is unique in terms of its syllabus. Can you tell me that? It's different from other social sciences in certain ways. Current affairs is there in almost all the papers, but yes, you are right in the way that it is more. In political science IR, there is more current affairs. And this is the reason why it will help you more also in GS paper. Because everything that you are going to, because every aspect of current affairs being covered over here is directly, you will be preparing for your GS. Rather here you will, understand the issues in more detail. So you will be better analyzing, more dimensions will be there in your answers in your GS paper also. Yes. Interlinkage between topics will be there in all the subjects, right? There is something different in the structure, the way the papers are structured. Maybe that's the first thing I would like to discuss. So first I'm going to talk about the syllabus and the content, okay? We'll spend a lot of time over there, which will bring in some understanding for you. Second thing we will try to do is that to look into the approach and then how the course has been designed. And then we will see what are the advantages of taking political science and international relations, what are the overlaps with GS paper, how it will help you there. Maybe it may help you in your essay writing also, right? So a little discussion on there. And then maybe, although it's a very far stretch, but yet it will help you in your interview also if you reach somehow there. Yes. So, any question? No? So shall I start? Okay. I anyhow know all your questions even when you will not ask. So the first thing that we should understand is that we have two papers, right? Paper 1 and paper 2, right? Now, if you have seen the syllabus carefully, you should have seen that what are different sections there, broad sections. Paper 1, this is paper 1, this is paper 2. Okay? Paper 1, the first part of paper 1 is what is called as, what is it? Political theory, right? political theory. Second part of paper 1 is Indian government and politics. Okay, Indian government and politics. Sorry, Indian government and politics. Are you people here with the notebook, all of you? You should try to write as much. I told you, don't take it as a workshop. Even though you are not opting for political science, even then you should write down. Whatever you will study, it will help you there. It will establish some linkages. There is a lot of linking with GS along with interview also. Okay. How to deal with what? You haven't asked the complete question. How to deal with what? We will see that. Then in paper 2, what do we have? Paper 2, the first part is what? Comparative politics and international relations, right? Though international relations is the entire paper, but we say comparative politics. Comparative politics and international relations. And the second part of paper 2 is Indian foreign policy. Okay, is Indian foreign policy. Obviously, you will have all affairs, multilateral affairs and bilateral relationships with other countries as part of this. Now, how is it different from all other subjects is that in all other social sciences, paper 1 is theoretical and paper 2 is the application of theories to India. This is in all other subjects. But in political science, first part, section A of paper 1 is also theoretical, section A of paper 2 is also theoretical. Okay? So you have to identify what are the theoretical portions in your syllabus, what are the practical portions in your syllabus. This first and foremost needs to be very clear. Are you more interested in theory or are you more interested in politics? Tell me. In practical politics, not in theory? No, you are not interested in theories? Okay. You want to become philosopher, you want to become politician? Politician, obviously, your answer would be like politician. Some of you may be interested in becoming philosophers also. What is a theory? Equality, theories में concepts दिए होते हैं. Okay, theory has concepts, that is correct. But this doesn't define what is theory. This is not the complete explanation of what is theory. Yes. Fundamentals. Okay. It's not just about fundamentals. In fact, you see, in our entire, scheme of the course, right, all the classes we will be having, some initial 5 to 6 sessions will be very basic. Basic in the sense we will not start with the syllabus. We will try to talk about certain basic concepts first and foremost, which should be made clear. In that, one of the sessions I will take purely on explaining to you what is theory, what is concept, what are constructs, all these concepts. And in theory itself will require a lot of explanation. I cannot explain it right away what is theory, but briefly I will tell you in layman terms, right, what should you understand by theory. You people have been studying theories from your school days, right? And you see, this is how we have been studying, right? We have been studying certain things from our school days, but we don't know the exact meaning of those terms. The emphasis in the class should be to clear each and every term and terminology, the correct meaning of all the terms. Because until or unless that's there, you will not be able to get a complete grasp of the question and give the correct and complete answers. Right? So here you say, I would say that this is theoretical, this one is theoretical, this one will be theory and this is practice, right? Similarly, this one is practical. What about this? section A of paper 2 is theoretical, but along with that there is something practical also involved in this. Why? Because in section A of paper 2 you are also dealing with some issues which are going on in international politics. What are the conflict zones in the world? The conflict zones in the world today are nothing but these are the older conflict zones only. Older conflict zones, they take new forms. Samuel Huntington in his work, what is called as the Clash of Civilization, had given altogether a new interpretation of these conflicts, or what he calls are the fault lines. There are fault lines in the civilizations. Where civilizations are meeting, the boundary of civilizations, there are fault lines. There are zones of conflicts, like for example, Palestine and Israel. Then because of the Cold War times, there had been zones of conflicts, which may be based upon ideology, which may be based upon certain identities, national identities, maybe because of ethnicity, race, or religion for that matter. Right? So these issues also, like for example, Afghanistan is an issue since when? Since when Afghanistan issue has emerged as a big issue in the international scenario? 1979. 79, Russia, then Soviet Union, it had entered into Afghanistan. But Afghanistan as a political buffer was established during the colonial times. Afghanistan was created as a buffer between the Russian Empire and the British colonies. And Lord Curzon and such other leaders at that point of time, they have a lot of contribution. This was the time of early 20th century when started what you call as the Great Game. So there is a very strong background which is related to world history. You are going to study world history in your GS syllabus, but that's all is connected. So that background, and then whatever happens in the Cold War times, 1979 till the fall of Soviet Union, and then what happens afterwards. You see, it is taking new propositions all the time. Right? And then again we have another issue. 1996, Taliban had entered Afghanistan. After 9/11 they were removed, and then again they are back. So it's a continuous story. So Afghanistan as a zone of conflict had always remained in the news, and that's why it is covered as one of the issues in your syllabus, in your paper 2 section A. So there are certain practical issues also you are going to learn. You will learn about certain zones in Asia, in Europe, and maybe even some global issues like even global warming, like environment or gender justice, all those issues. So there is some practical aspect also in section A of paper 1. You should be able to identify by looking at the detailed content in the syllabus as what all is theoretical and what all is practical. Are we getting the point? Now when we are talking about theory, so obviously the theory is going to be related with practice or not. Whatever you are learning in political theory, and I'm going to explain what is there in political theory. In fact, I will give you 3 frameworks. One framework I will give you for political theory only, this much, okay. Second framework I will give you is related to Indian government and politics, and the third framework I will talk about the entire paper 2, because there's a very strong connect there in paper 2. 3 frameworks you need to understand today, so that your mind opens up. First you need to open up your mind, right? Open up your mind, like, okay, what all is there? Then slowly things will fall in place, you'll start understanding everything. This is perhaps one of the most interesting, though I consider all the subjects to be very interesting, but this is like, many subjects are interesting when you get deeper into it, right? But there are certain subjects which are interesting from outside itself. The moment you will look at the syllabus, it will look interesting. Political science is one such subject which is, when you see the syllabus itself, you'll find it interesting. And of course, in learning it is interesting. So whatever you are learning as theory is going to be applied. Whatever you are learning as theory here in paper 1 will also get applied to understand international theories. Like for example, if you are studying the ideas of, okay, before I mention any of the thinkers, let me just listen from you. Tell me some names of some political thinkers. Machiavelli. Okay, who said Machiavelli? What is so special about Machiavelli? Prince. The Prince. It is a very popular book, right? It's all available everywhere on all bookstores. Machiavelli, what is so special about Machiavelli? One answer from, okay, Plato. Aristotle, you didn't tell me about, I want maybe one statement in case if you want to share anything you know about Machiavelli. What? Okay. So Machiavelli was a very realist political philosopher. It is said about Machiavelli that he ushered into the realm of politics with naked realism. Naked realism. It's very similar to Kautilya. It is also said that if from the Prince you remove the word Machiavelli and replace it with Kautilya, it will remain more or less the same. Whatever Kautilya had mentioned in his discourse, something very similar was talked about later on by Machiavelli in the medieval period. In Italy, the purpose was to work for reunification of Italy, which was largely divided into various nationalities. So Machiavelli has certain prescriptions to give to the prince that you should do this so as to make your state stronger. These are the realistic prescriptions which are prescribed. And when you are working for, like say, this is related to politics itself, right? But it is also related to international politics. So Machiavelli's work is not only important in political theory in paper 1, but his ideas will become relevant even in international politics. Because if two countries themselves, like suppose India wants to increase its power with respect to which? Maybe its neighboring countries, maybe with respect to superpowers. So the work of Machiavelli remains relevant because there is realism. All of you know that Indian foreign policy became more realistic after the 1962 war, isn't it? Are you aware of this? In the early years, we were talking a lot about disarmament and peace, right? We were not even bothered about nuclear weapons. Then after 1962, India realized and it started to change its foreign policy because of our experience in the Sino-Indian War. That is the reason why in 1974 we could explode the first nuclear. It was a nuclear technology which was tested. We never called then that we have a nuclear weapon as such. So Machiavelli is relevant there or not in international politics also. Someone said Plato. Who said Plato? Who had said? You had said at the back. Who had said? Someone had said Plato, right? Someone had said, right? Please raise your hand. Who was it? Okay, I will not ask you question, don't worry. Max Weber. Weber is not as much of a political thinker, he was a sociologist. Weber's idea you are going to study Weber briefly when it comes only to bureaucracy, right? In understanding of how government works briefly. Socrates was there, Socrates and then Plato and then Aristotle, they were successive disciples of each other, right? One after the other. Tocqueville was there, yes. But then his contribution will come much later on, modern thinkers. Locke and Hobbes, number of thinkers, Hobbes, Locke and Rousseau. Hobbes, Locke and Rousseau will be very important because there's a very interesting and the most important theory in the syllabus would be social contract theory, which has been given by Hobbes, Locke and Rousseau. Right, so we will spend a good amount of time discussing that. But let's try to not just randomly mention their names. Let me also keep mentioning certain things so that, there's some delight, there is some interest, some curiosity should be generated. The most important thing is curiosity and interest, isn't it? If you are curious, if you are interested, then you will be able to commit yourselves. You will put your effort. Otherwise, it will all go to waste. Then Aristotle for that matter. Plato and Aristotle. Plato is considered as the first political philosopher. And Aristotle is considered as the first political scientist. So there is a difference between philosopher and scientist. What is the difference? What is the difference between a philosopher and a scientist? Plato and Aristotle? Okay. You mean to say that Plato is more radical? Radical, no? Radical means he's bound to bring a lot of change. Okay, yes? Cause and effect. So he is more realistic. Scientific is like there's a difference between philosopher, then you are dwelling into the realm of ideas. You generate abstract ideas. You just think and explore and say on the basis of your experiences, on the basis of maybe your instinct, your random thoughts which comes, flashes, insights which comes to your mind, on the basis of your emotions, the values which you have. On that basis you understand this word and you give expressions. But a scientist is someone who will try to study things in a scientific manner. That means there has to be observation. There will be some experimentation. On the basis of evidence, experiments, something will be said. Evidence can be drawn also from the historical studies, what happened in the past. But the reason needs to be given. Philosophers will also give the reason, but the reasons given by scientists will be more objective. Philosophers will be based more on logic, right? And these people, the scientists, will focus more upon experimentation. They will prove it. So there will be slight difference. So we will have to understand different thinkers and see that who is more like a philosopher and who is more like a scientist. So when you are learning Plato and Aristotle and Machiavelli and Hobbes, Locke and Rousseau, and you never forget Hegel for that matter. Perhaps Hegel is one political thinker who talks most strongly about the state. He says the state is a march of God on earth. What do you mean by this? State is a march of God on earth. State is like a manifestation of God on earth. A state is such an important institution. Do you all understand what is state? What is state is clear to you. I will assume that you don't know anything. Okay, once you will start with the class, I will explain everything from the basics. Everything, so that everything is falling rightfully. But still you must be having some idea about the state, right? Have you studied some polity yet? No? Polity you haven't studied. Okay, fine. It's okay. So the slate is absolutely clean, that means, right? I can write whatever I feel like on that. That's good in a way. State basically is an entity, like India is a state, right? It has a territory with population which is having a government which is sovereign. Four elements are there. Territory, a territory with population which is having government which is sovereign. So you remember, like sequence, you remember territory, population, government and sovereignty. Any entity which has having these four elements is a state, right? So it's very important to understand what is state, but it is also, maybe later on I will explain to you what is society and then how state comes into existence. And then one state and then another state, and then you compare, like comparative politics. What is the relationship between two states, two countries? So all the ideas which you are studying here will get applied over here. Then from here also, in this also there is theory and practice, the ideas will get applied. Whatever you are studying here will get applied to Indian foreign policy, right? Like for example, Indian foreign policy had been idealist or realist. Earlier it was idealist, later it became realist. So there are two schools of thoughts, idealist school of thought and realist school of thought in international relations. Then you will apply that approach, those principles, and understand the Indian foreign policy, right? Then this theory will also get applied here. Like say, what is the relevance? How do you think that Indian foreign policy has been influenced by the ideas of Aristotle? I mean, question may arise. If you have understood Aristotle, you should be in a position to relate Aristotle with anything in the world. If you have understood Hobbes, you should be able to relate Hobbes with anything in the world, right? So maybe when you are writing the answers on Indian foreign policy, and if you can pass on some reference of some thinker in paper 1, will it show better understanding or not? So that interrelation, that ability to interrelate should be there. But that ability will come only when you are very clear about the concepts and the ideas and the thought of all the thinkers. Are we getting it now? This is the relationship which is there. These are the four components. This way political science and IR is different from other social sciences, because in other social sciences usually paper 1 is all theoretical, paper 2 is as applied in India. But here both the papers have theory and both the papers have practice. I am going to discuss 3 different frameworks with you so that you have a very good idea what is there as part of the syllabus, what you have to learn. Any question now if you have? You may ask. Okay, fine. It should be natural. Naturally questions should come and you should never hesitate. One thing let me make clear, that the classes should be absolutely, will provide absolute free environment. There should be no hesitation, no reluctance, saying anything, mentioning anything, asking questions. You can, talk about, you can ask as many questions possible. It is up to me. Maybe if I'll find it is not relevant, I may not answer the question also. But 99.9% of the time I will answer the question. Yes. Okay. Okay. So you already know that it is there, right? Both Western and Indian are there, right? You know it or not? Yeah. So in the political theory, there are Western political philosophers or thinkers, and there are Indian thinkers also in political theory. Like you will study about now you will realize that these are some of the greatest political thinkers from India. Kautilya you already know, right? You may also know about Manu. Though Manu is not mentioned, but Dharma Shastra is there, Artha Shastra and Dharma Shastra. So Dharma Shastra basically is the idealist school of thought, and Artha Shastra is the realist school of thought. There's a big basic difference between Dharma Shastra and Artha Shastra, because Dharma is related to what? Righteousness, the best way to live life and right conduct. That's Dharma Shastra. And Artha Shastra is something which is related to the affairs of the state, the realistic affairs of the state, how production and distribution will happen. This is realistic, right? Because it is related to matter, it is related to resources. This is economics. So there is a basic difference. So apart from whatever you have to know about Dharma Shastra, Artha Shastra, then Gandhi will be there obviously as a political thinker. M.N. Roy, have you heard of M.N. Roy? M.N. Roy as a political thinker is mentioned in Indian political thinker. Why M.N. Roy is there? Because M.N. Roy is a founder of the Communist Party in India. So there's altogether this socialist communist stream of thought which is there in Indian political realm. It is, the foundation is laid by M.N. Roy. And M.N. Roy's ideas are very interesting. Then Aurobindo Ghosh is there. Aurobindo Ghosh is a philosopher. His ideas are altogether very different. It's very close to, if you will study, though Hegel is not in your syllabus now, it was there in earlier syllabus of political science, Hegel, but still you need to know something about Hegel. And the idea of Aurobindo Ghosh is quite similar to the idea of Hegel. We will see that. Right? Then you have Sir Syed Ahmad. See, all different streams have been included in Indian political thought. I think that now BJP might like to change the syllabus and include Savarkar also as a political thinker. I mean, there's nothing wrong in studying Savarkar as a political thinker. Maybe whether you like those ideas or not. I mean, you may not like, many people may not like the ideas of Gandhi for that matter. But it is not a question of whether we like it or not. It is all the more important to study that person whom you don't like. It's even more important. But that's something which is a free choice for people. But we should study. Like for example, even a non-Marxist or someone who is anti-Marxist should study a lot about Marx. Then only he could speak against Marx. Without studying about Marx, how can you speak against Marx? It's not possible. Okay, you should read history and geography of the world after starting for international relations. Okay, what will you study? I will tell you later on. You don't have to worry about studying anything for, learning this subject, okay? If you are going to be part of the class, that means you should be, hassle-free for that matter. And if you are doing it by yourself, then maybe you can take some guidance also from me, separately also. Okay, so did I answer your question or not? Yeah, second part is not answered. In fact, that was a more important question, is to what extent do you have to get into these thinkers. I would say that, you have to, I mean, it's very difficult to have a thermometer to measure that depth or whatever instrument as to how much deeper you need to go. But at least the major broader ideas, like for example, Gandhi, right? For Gandhi, you should be clear about what he says about truth, about satyagrah, non-violence, right? What is his ideas about the state, what he thinks about state, he thinks about power and authority, then his economic ideas, where you have the trusteeship and you have decentralization of production. These major ideas you should be clear about. Okay, it's not that you have to read one book on Gandhi, no. Just one chapter, we will provide you that material which you will have to study. Okay, I will tell you about everything, how we are going to conduct the classes, material and notes, right, extra readings, everything I will make it clear. But before getting into that, let me just tell you those three frameworks which I want to discuss so that you are clear about what you are going to study. Okay, let's start this. Let's get into a little more meaningful discussion now. We are here to learn about political science. And the first thing you need to know, these two terms itself we should focus upon. Forget about IR right now, forget about international relations, let's focus on political science. So we are interested in first and foremost understanding these two words, political and science. Right? There is this original term called polis. Polis. Polis is Greek city state. Okay, if you go back to the ancient times, in Greece there were city states. City state means there were many small states which were of the size of like cities, right? Or maybe very small states, many of them. You can imagine that Greece in itself is a small country today, right? That country was divided into many small states. And the geography was such that there were a lot of physical barriers between, some mountains or rivers and other things. So there were geographical barriers. These cities, they were running their own affairs. They were having their own governments. So there were these Greek city states which were called as polis. And the affair, the term politics has come from this word polis. How these communities, Greek city states, were managing their own affairs. What will happen in managing the affairs? Like suppose we as a group of community here, right? We have to manage the affairs here in the class. So what shall we do? We will discuss and then we will take some decisions, right? And then those decisions need to be implemented. For implementation, you will give some authority to someone who will take care of that everything is happening properly. That's how affairs happens in a state. So basically this process itself is political process, right? The process of taking decisions, right? Deliberation, taking decisions and getting it implemented through authority. This itself is political. But I will make you people write properly, though right now today I may not be discussing everything very elaborately. In our usual classes we will get into details and will write about every term properly so that you understand. The moment the term political comes, you should be able to at least write one page. The moment the word politics comes, you should be able to write one page about politics. What is politics? So there are three terms from this, right? Polis, from here itself, we have to talk about three terms. First is polity, another is politics, and the third is political, right? Let's try to understand these three terms. First of all, we should focus upon which term? Let's start with politics, isn't it? Politics is fundamental, no? If you are a student of political science, you are a student of politics. So what is politics? Yes. What is politics? Tell me your idea about politics. You can say anything you feel like. And that would be good enough, I'm telling you. Yes. Competition. Okay, good. Yeah. Exactly. Politics is about like, I want to achieve something, you want to achieve something, I have my interest, you have your, many people, everyone has some interest, and then we will have to see how we will pursue our interests, or maybe how everyone's interest will be fulfilled, right? Politics essentially, if I have to mention, let me just mention maybe here separately. Okay, now this framework which I have started here, right, I will continue in this framework. Okay, so you may on a separate page, right, you can on a separate page you continue with this framework. On a separate page you can write something extra, whatever I am writing, but ensure that you do write, because when I say what is politics, you know, it is not only a student of political science who should know what is politics, but even as a general studies student you should know what is politics. Maybe in your general studies paper also they may ask you what is politics, or explain something about politics, or political dimension of something. If you know what is politics, you will be able to write the political dimension of that, because you will have 10 points in your mind already there. So let me write this here. What is politics? Politics is about, first of all, it is about what? It is about problem solving. It is about problem solving. Like any community, some problems are there, those problems need to be resolved. So how will that be resolved? Through the political process. So politics is conducted for solving the problem. Politics primarily is good, right? It may become bad because it may not be practiced the way it is prescribed. So it may become bad because it is meant to be pursuing everyone's interest, but then few people might become too dominant and then they start to pursue their own interest, then that politics may not be good. So what will solve the problem of the society overall when everyone's problem is solved? For solving the problem, there has to be what we say pursuit of interest. Now remember, you start remembering the expressions. Start remembering the expressions. Pursuit of it. Politics is a pursuit of interest. Like in India, aren't different groups pursuing their interest? Which groups? You see, if one biggest thing is, advantage of learning in this subject is everything will become crystal clear as to what is happening in politics. There are political parties who are fighting for the interest of Dalits. There are political parties which are fighting for interest of trader, worker class. There may be certain organization who will fight for the interest of minorities. So every different sections, the groups, organizations, they are pursuing certain interest. Then if everyone is going to pursue interest, then there will be conflict or not. So politics will also be about conflict resolution. If everyone is focusing upon their interest, there will be conflict, but then politics has to resolve the conflicts. So it's about conflict resolution. If many people have different interests, then politics should be able to resolve all the interests. How will it resolve all the interest? By aggregation of interest. Aggregation of interest. What do you mean by aggregation of interest? What do you mean by aggregation? Means adding, isn't it? You see, any political party will come to power when it has a majority. How will the party get the majority? When it will represent larger number of interest. If they will represent interest on only few sections, then they will not get majority, isn't it? So they will have to aggregate the interest. Congress as a political, in India, you know that till the year 1967, and in fact some people would say till the year 1977, there was a domination of one party in India. In fact, till 1967, there was a clear-cut domination of Congress party in the central also and in all the states also. After 1967, now these are very interesting, process of, you see that you will get into knowing what happened during the elections and which parties came to power, which parties were formed when, how they came to power. 1967 elections were landmark elections because in many states Congress lost power and many regional parties came to power. in 1967. So the domination of the Congress party had ended. Before 1967, Congress was doing this work very nicely. Which work? Aggregation of interest. That's why it was getting a lot of votes everywhere. It was called as an umbrella organization because Congress was, even today some people may call it as umbrella because it is trying to meet the interest of every section of the society. Then it was even stronger. Today it has lost its mandate. There has been erosion in the mandate of the Congress party. What are the reasons for the erosion of the mandate of the Congress party? Only a student of political science can answer that by understanding and doing the analysis of what exactly has been happening over these years, especially in the recent times. Are we getting it? What is politics? Then politics, if you really want to solve the problem, you should be in a position also to solve the problem. How will you resolve the conflict? How will you see that everyone's interest is meeting or not? You have to be in the position of power or authority. Politics is about, it's a pursuit for, it's also a pursuit for what? Power. And see, all the terms are sequentially related to each other. If you remember sequence, you will be able to write all the points. And when you have got the power, what will you do? You will do conflict resolution, you will say that everyone's interest is, but then you have to take certain decisions. So politics is also about collective decision making. For whose interest? For the interest of entire community. So it's about, we say, collective decision making. Collective decision making. For what? For community. You can even say society, but of course I will tell you the difference between society and community also afterwards, not now. Every term is unique, okay? You can't substitute one for the other. Nation, community, society, all these have different meanings. And then decision making, sometimes we say decisions are made like longer term decisions, right? We call them as what decisions? These are policy decisions. So politics is about policy making. And what is involved in policy making is also policy making and what? Vision. There has to be some vision that you can see. You are far-sighted. How the problem will be solved. So you started with the problem and now you are setting the vision to solve the problem. Then implementation aspect will become part of administration. Will you remember what is politics now? Will you remember the terms? Just quickly revise it. It's about what? Problem solving, pursuing interest, conflict resolution, aggregation of interest, coming to power, that is pursuit for power, setting vision, making policy, taking decisions. Half a page you can write about politics now. And if you are creative enough, you can elaborate and expand the way you are writing in your university exams. Like you are filling up pages. I don't know from where you get all those words from, but you manage somehow, right? So you can write a lot about politics. What is political? Obviously, political is an adjective for politics. So it is related to all of this, but still, I have to explain something here. Because when we are using the word political in political science, it has a specific meaning, okay? The word political, it can be seen in general terms also and in very specific terms also. General terms, you say this is political, you are political, there is a political content in this, isn't it? You may also say that, you know, that company or the organization, that leader, I mean the manager is very political. There's a lot of politics in the organization. So politics may be anywhere. Politics may be there in any group also, right? Anywhere, wherever there is a group, there is politics, because when there is a group, then there are members and the members are pursuing their interest. So there may be politics over there. But in specific terms, when we talk about the subject of political science or politics as it is applied overall to the society, then here it has a specific meaning. Okay. So in general terms, you can relate to whatever we have discussed here in politics generally, right? It's about collective decision making for the society, for solving the problems, for the good life. But in specific terms, political is something which is related to the institution of state, okay, not other institutions of society. This is the difference between social and political. The term political, when we use it in political science, it is in specific way. Here it means term political will apply to what? Applies to the which institution? To the institution of state. There may be non-government organizations also taking decisions, right, for the good of the society. In general sense you can say that is, but in specific term, the way it is political science, it means it is related to state and the government. Pertaining to state. So which is the most important term for us? What is the first thing you need to learn all about? It's about state. How state, when state came into existence? When? In India, when state came into existence, I mean, can this be deciphered as to when state came into existence in India? Was Mauryan Empire a state? It was, because it had a territory, it had population, it had government, it was sovereign, right? But if you talk about the primitive society, at what point of time, which empire, which that dynasty or whatever was there could be called as state in India, which was the first state, it's very difficult to precisely answer. Same goes for the entire world for that matter. So this is a process of evolution. Then there are different thinkers. Many thinkers, they have explained this, how state comes into existence. I mentioned about Hobbes, Locke and Rousseau, right? Some of you also mentioned. Hobbes, Locke and Rousseau have given this theory of social contract. So there is a theory of origin of state. Kautilya has also given a theory, a theory on origin of state, how state originates. Kautilya says that there was a situation of a Matsya Nyaya, means a state of anarchy earlier. Then people made a contract to come out of that state of anarchy and they established authority. Same Hobbes, Locke and Rousseau also talks about the same thing. But then what is that process, how state comes into existence? So you see here, we are going to look at two things in our discussion. One is related to theory, other thing is related to practice. But theory on what? When you talk about political, I said everything that is related to state. And government is part of the state or not? Government is part of the state and sovereignty is part of the government. Okay. Now when you say science, let's see what is science. Science basically is a approach or a way you are studying something. You are trying to understand something, explain it, and even give certain prescription. How things need to be done, how things need to be followed. So basically science is related to study. First you will study. Oh, if something is happening, what is happening? First you will try to figure out, okay, let me see what exactly is happening. Then you will try to explain it. When you are understanding, you will give explanation. You can even say study, understanding, explanation, and then what will happen? You will give prescription. This is what theory does. I asked you the question, what is theory? So theory is giving the explanation first and then it is prescribing the best way how things should happen. A theory of state would mean what? It will explain how state is existing, how it comes into existence, how it functions, and it also prescribe what is the best state, what could be the ideal state. Aristotle and Plato both have given their theories of ideal state. What shall be the ideal? Plato says that philosophers should be king in an ideal state. Philosophers should be king. Like someone who has a lot of intellectual capacity should become the king. This could be the difference between Dr. Manmohan Singh and Prime Minister Modi. Because Manmohan Singh would belong to Platonic traditions, because philosophers was the king. And this happens to be more practical. But we will analyze this also based upon certain everything, whatever is happening in politics in India today, you should be able to dissect and analyze based upon your understanding. You will have to understand layers by layers. Once that is done, you won't even imagine how much of clarity will come to you. Right, so government, and now as this all in science, basically what do we have? We have theories. Okay, these theories are following different approaches. Theories are given from different approach, like example, idealist approach and realist approach. Right, scientific approach or maybe traditional approach. Some will be explaining things from the economic perspective. Arthashastra gives more importance to economics or not? Kautilya says economy is very important, most important. That's why it's called as Arthashastra. Right? Artha word, the word Artha means what? It's related to the means of production. Same goes with Marx. Marx says that economy is at the base of everything. Marx says that society changes as economy changes. I don't think there is any better way to understand the world than to study Marxism. I may not like the prescriptions of Marx, but if you will say that I will understand the world better not studying Marx, I will never agree. Marx, if you study Marx, then only you will be able to understand the word. Otherwise, you don't understand word properly. The way he has explained how the mode of production has changed, how from primitive communism we entered into feudalism, agriculture-based society to industrial society, and then after that he's prescribed socialism and then communism. This entire process of transformation, if this is clear to you, you understand word, and then you will understand politics. And then you will understand what is happening in India today. So these are different approaches. Marx will follow, and which approach? He's also a realistic approach, focusing more on economic aspect. Some people will focus more on the social aspect. Some will focus on individuals more. Some will focus on the collectivity or the state more. Aristotle says that state is a natural institution. Aristotle says that it is in the state only that an individual will realize himself, his true potential. If you are not part of the state, you will not be able to realize your true potential. So, through different approaches, these theories are the product of different thoughts, right? You are going to study thought. Whose thought? Of Western thinkers, of Indian thinkers. Now, there may be thinkers from China also, but it is not part of your syllabus. I mean, I don't know, we should thank UPSC for that or not, but at least you only have thinkers from the Western world and Indian thinkers. So, thought basically is the result of thinkers. What thinkers? Western thinkers and Indian thinkers. We have already seen the names. If you have seen the syllabus, what all Western thinkers are there in your syllabus? Plato and Aristotle and Machiavelli and Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau is there, Marx is there, and then Hannah Arendt is there, right? Then Indian thinkers, if we talk about, we have already talked about so many thinkers you will study. These thinkers are giving the ideas on what? On the basis of what? On the basis of what are they giving their ideas? It depends upon many things, isn't it? It depends upon the historical context. Historical context. It depends upon their social context. What society were they living in? What was the mode of production there? Were they there at the time of industrial revolution, or were they there when agricultural revolution or agriculture was a mode of production? Like Machiavelli was in the medieval times, isn't it? Industrial revolution hadn't happened. He was talking about monarchy. But Hobbes, Locke and Rousseau, they belong to the period of Renaissance, Reformation, all these like post-mercantilist phase when industrial revolution was about to come. So they talk about liberty, liberal ideas. That's very interesting. You know, Locke, you may not have heard the name of Locke, some of you. And very unfortunate that a lot of people don't know the name of Locke. That is actually surprising because all our modern institution, the parliamentary system, the parliamentary practice is based upon the ideas of John Locke, the British political philosopher. So Locke is very important. Locke talks about the rights, what you say as right to life, liberty and property. This expression was used by John Locke. Like these are like too many things coming to you right now, just as a glimpse of what all is there, what you have to study. And trust me that it is very interesting once you will get into the details of these ideas. Social context is important, right? What is their mode of production? Then their own experiences of life, their observations, their understanding of human nature. Every political philosopher will first of all try to understand the human nature. Then only they will say what type of state will be there. Like Machiavelli as a realist will say the human beings are nasty people and they should be dealt that way. Or for that matter, Hobbes also says that they are very, nasty and greedy people. That's a Hobbes. And Hobbes says that there has to be a leviathan, someone with full authority to have a command over them. So they have their different interpretations of human nature. So based upon their lifetimes, their historical time, their society, then what rulers they have seen, rulers or you see kings, whatever their experiences have been. Based upon that they give the ideas. John Locke had a very positive, has given a very positive explanation about human nature, John Locke. Why? Because he had seen a glorious revolution in Britain, where the transfer of power was happening in a bloodless form, in a very peaceful manner. So he had created in his mind a very bright, understanding of human nature. But Hobbes, he had seen the more tumultuous times, bloody revolutions. So he will create what picture in his mind? A very nasty and greedy picture about human nature, on the basis of which they will give their philosophy. So human nature is the basic, on the basis of which they will build upon their ideas. Kautilya also says that human beings are like very notorious people. If you will not command them, like he says, what Kautilya says, for them, it means for individual members, for them the ways and means of embezzlement means doing corruption. For them the ways and means of doing corruption are 40. That means hundreds of ways they can go corrupt. So you should devise a system which itself takes care of that there is no corruption. This is how he was realist, and this was his perception. That's why it was a strong system of espionage, right? The spy system, intelligence system. Because the human beings are such nasty people, according to Kautilya, that they will always follow their own selfish, greedy interests. But all political philosophers may not be like that. Then you have to think what Gandhi thinks about individuals. And then the idea was, like they have said, that state is an individual writ large. If you understand the individual, you will understand the state. So herein you see, we have to establish, like I am just drawing this, let's say this is, what is this? This is society, okay? Let's draw a bigger circle here. So in the society, the most important institution is state and government is part of it, right? Then we have here, let's say there are individuals, or maybe there are groups, right? There is a kind of a relationship between the state or the government and the individuals. What kind of relationship will that be? There will be many relationships now. First of all, you need to understand how these individuals, let's say citizenship, isn't it? They are citizens of the state. As a citizens, they are going to get another relationship will be of rights and duties. Do we have fundamental rights in our constitution? Do we have fundamental duties in our constitution? Because that establishes the relationship of the individual with the state. I have my rights. Who's ensuring? State is ensuring my rights. Then I have certain duties towards the state. So rights and duties. Then every individual will seek, and the groups will also seek some justice, and the state has to provide. Just these are the terms in the preamble also of our constitution. So there is going to be another linkage which we say as justice. In the government, you should be knowing about various forms of government, and the most important form of government for us is democracy. Then there are different models of democracy. It is, you see, it is these theories which are going to give an explanation about the state, about the origin of state and functions of state. How state comes into existence and then what state does. There are different theories on that. There is something called as utilitarianism. Have you heard of utilitarianism? Utilitarianism means something which will have utility, right? There is a tradition which is saying that the greatest good of the greatest number. Greatest good of the greatest number. Justice is what? Justice is getting greatest good for greatest number. That means maximum happiness for maximum number of people. Have you heard of Antyodaya? Antyodaya, have you heard? Antyodaya. You haven't heard of Antyodaya? Okay. Have you heard of Sarvodaya? Sarvodaya also you haven't heard? Okay. Jai Prakash Narayan, Sarvodaya Andolan was there. Sarvodaya means Sarva. Sarvodaya means what? If you understand Hindi. Sarva Uday. That means rise of all, happiness of all. Right? And Antyodaya means rise of the person who is standing in the end. Right? That means someone who is the most disadvantageous. A justice will come only when you bring some good for that person. This is what Antyodaya is. So these are the ideas of justice. And there, all these thinkers, they will give their ideas of justice, they will give their ideas of rights and duties and citizenship, of obligation, authority. How, you see, here one more thing is that how the power or authority is exercised. Power or authority is exercised. So I am just introducing to you many concepts. These are the concepts. You said right in the beginning that theory is made up of concepts. These are the concepts. What are the concepts in political science? Justice is a concept. Rights is a concept. Duty is a concept. Power, authority, hegemony, ideology, democracy. These are the forms of government. These are the state is a concept. Government is a concept. Sovereignty is a concept. These theories are going to be applied. Let me put it in a different color. These theories are going to be applied to state. Theories related to government, theories related to democracy, and theories related to individuals with respect to all of this. Theories related to power, citizenship, rights and duties, and theories related to justice. Are we clear? Though there are political, and of course, all of this will also depend upon, approaches, all will depend upon the approaches will give rise to ideologies also. I cannot explain everything right in this class, but we should be knowing about what is ideology. When we will discuss political ideology, Ideologies, and perhaps that's the most interesting unit of the syllabus. First of all, I will discuss about what is ideology and how it is different from philosophy, or how it is different from hegemony or other ideas. So that should be clear to you. What is the difference between philosophy and ideology? What is the difference between ideology and culture? Can you tell me some names of some political ideologies? Yeah, Gramsci also. Yes, well, Gramsci you mentioned in what context? Marxist thinker, right? He was a neo-Marxist. Antonio Gramsci, another powerful name. Later on, right now you don't know about these people, but once you will study about them, then every time you'll take their name and this goosebumps. Like I get goosebumps all the time when I take their names. Such have been their contributions. They are so inspiring. The greatest of people are the philosophers in this world, and the inventors and the scientists. No one can be above them. Tell me name of some. I have been speaking for quite some time now. You should speak something. Tell me the names of some political ideologies. Yes. Any question from the centers? Anywhere, online students? Tell me name of some political ideology. Yes. Communism. Okay. Communism by itself cannot be seen as a political ideology. It is part and parcel of Marxism. Okay. But yes, some people may say that way also. Okay. Agreed? Louder? Feminism. Okay. Feminism is a political ideology. Yes. Socialism, yes. Socialism, feminism. You said communism, let's replace it with Marxism, maybe communism, and somehow it is related to socialism also. Capitalism is not a political ideology. Capitalism is a economic system which is supported by which political ideology? Liberalism. Liberalism is a political ideology. When you say liberalization happening, no? Liberalization, privatization, globalization. So liberalization means liberalism is spreading across the world. The liberal political ideology is spreading across the world. And fascism, who said fascism? Who said? Okay, fascism. What is the difference between fascism and Nazism? It's the same thing. It's the same thing but applied in different geographical context. Like in Germany, fascism took the form of Nazism. In Italy, mostly we called it as fascist. That is the originator. So we will discuss about fascism, you will get to know. Though it is not a very, it's a relevant ideology always, because we can always understand what are the fascist tendencies in our systems also, many a times. Yes, any other political ideology? Realism as such cannot be considered as a political ideology, rather it is an approach. But then obviously all of you will not be able to understand exactly what is political ideology right now, right? Till the time I will explain what exactly is a political ideology and how it is different from approach or philosophy or theory, isn't it? But still I will just ask a random question. Let me see how slowly and slowly you people are becoming more and more familiar. Yeah. Okay. Can I talk a bit on anarchism? Why shall I not talk about other things then? Yeah, so you are saying that is a political ideology? It is a political, anarchism is a political ideology, and it's very good that you raised it. Anarchism is also political. In fact, anarchism is perhaps the most evolved of all the ideas. Now you may say, how? Anarchy is a state of disorder, isn't it? The word anarchy is seen as a disorder. But that is, politically, that's not correct. No, it is not disorder. Anarchism is a very positive idea. It's that, humankind, it evolves so much. It evolves so much that every individual is able to order themselves, that you don't require anyone else to order you. State of lawlessness? No, that is a dictionary meaning of the term of the word anarchy, not the political ideology anarchism. Okay, there's a difference. Anarchism politically is a very positive concept. It says that the society is so evolved, every individual is so evolved that you don't require authority, that you don't require police force to order you. There is a natural order. One of the tenets of anarchism is that there is natural order in the society. There is no state. State is not required, authority is not required in anarchism, because there is natural order. Why natural order is there? Because every individual is so mature that they will discipline themselves. They don't require a police force. This is what anarchism is. That's why Gandhi also had a very strong, elements in his thoughts which were anarchist traits. Arvind Kejriwal also said once, I am an anarchist. When he's saying he's an anarchist, doesn't mean that he likes disorder. It means that he tries to work for that society such evolves where everyone is self-disciplined. That the state or a strong authority or a strong police is not required. Are you getting my point? Is that clear? So anarchism is a very important political ideology. Then we will also see later on what is the similarity in Marxism or what is the similarity in communism and anarchism. There is some similarity there also, but there is a lot of difference also. You people did not mention very important political ideology, that is conservatism. Okay, conservatism is a very important political ideology. People or those people who try to conserve the tradition and the culture. Yes. Why? No, I didn't get you. You have to repeat. Anarchism, why does not? Connected with disorder, not anarchism. Connotation. Connotation, okay. Okay, see what happens is that there is this word anarchy, okay? And then there is this word anarchism, okay? This is for common man, okay? And this is for people like you, for political scientists who understands political ideas, academicians, philosophers. There is a difference. The term anarchy essentially means a state of, what do you say, disorder. But why this disorder is actually seen in negative terms? This is actually a misrepresentation. It's a misinformed idea. But anarchism as a political concept is a positive idea. Why disorder is there? Because if there is, anarchism says there should not be police, okay? But someone who is a lay person, he will always say if police is not there, there will be disorder. But someone who is so evolved will say if police is not there, it's good because I am disciplining myself. So for more evolved people, you see two people. One is someone who is very evolved, another person who is not evolved. They will perceive anarchy in different ways. Someone who is not evolved will see if anarchy is there, that means police is not there, then we can't help. We will not be able to function properly. But someone, if he is evolved, he will say, oh, if anarchy is there, means police is not there, oh, we are happy because everyone is ordering themselves. That's the difference from where you are perceiving. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. This is, yeah, so the only answer to this is this anarchism is nothing but it's a state of utopia. It's a very idealist form of, political ideology, which is practically not possible because everyone will not be able to achieve the similar level of maturity, that evolved, state of being. So it's a very idealist, or you say utopia is what? It's in an ideal world. Communism is also similar to that. Even communism is like a utopian idea. No country in the world till date became communist. China may call itself as communist, but it never became communist. It is on its path towards communism, but then now, in fact, it is not even moving towards communism. It started to move back. No country in the world ever became communist because communism is a stateless, classless society. Stateless and classless, these are again utopia. Idealist, this is what Marx has prescribed this as an ultimate reality of the world, which has never been achieved so far. But of course, you will have a clarity once we will discuss everything slowly, bit by bit. Right now, don't feel like, intimidated by these big terms or these ideas, because this is, I'm just giving you a glimpse of what is there in the syllabus, what you are going to study. Everything will be made clear bit by bit as we progress, and we just do not have to understand it. We'll have to understand it well so that we can analyze, right? Have our viewpoint, our standing on all the issues, what is happening. Have you got what is there in political theory to some extent, right? So there are thinkers in that, Western thinkers, Indian thinkers, there are political ideologies, many of them you mentioned, some political ideologies you people did not mention. Nationalism is a political ideology. Fundamentalism is a political ideology. Ecologism, of which is the basis of environmentalism, is also considered as a political idea. There are green parties in some countries in the world, like in Germany there's a green party. So ecologism. These are different political. Perhaps the most important one which few people left was conservatism, and thanks to him that he mentioned anarchism. Otherwise anyhow I would have mentioned. So we will study all these political ideologies. Some of them which are mentioned in the syllabus we will study in full detail. What is not mentioned in the syllabus is also to be studied. Let me remind you, we will study what is not there in the syllabus also. A brief idea is definitely required for everything, because somehow or the other in the literature it will come. Then there are concepts and there's theories on, there's one particular unit, theories of justice. Then there are theories, concept of equality and theories of equality. Equality I haven't mentioned, you can mention equality also. This is another political concept. Theories of rights, theories of democracies, models of democracies. This all is there in your section A of paper 1. And of course, the most important unit in there is a theories on state. Marxists have their own interpretation of state. Marx will say state will comes into existence this way and this is what it does. Liberals will have different interpretation of state. Neo-Marxists will have different, then there will be neoliberals. We have post-colonial states. What is post-colonial society? What do you mean by post-colonial societies? The states which have emerged after colonialism has ended in these societies, right? So after, like India is a post-colonial society because we have a colonial past. Most of the countries of Asia and Africa are today post-colonial societies. They have their own peculiar problems. There are certain problems which are common to all these countries because they were exploited in the past. That exploitation was not only economic exploitation, it was also political and it was cultural exploitation, which has given a new realities to these societies. Then how are we dealing with these problems which is common? There may be certain countries in Africa or Asia which were not, can you give me any example from Asia and Africa, countries which were never colonies? Ethiopia was never a colony, so its society will be a little different. Thailand was never a colony. If you go to the Thailand, you will find that there may be only their own language which they use. There is no colonial imprint like in India we have English, being, I won't say it being imposed now, it's like already accepted, but that's a reality of our society. I mean, I am speaking in this language itself is a post-colonial feature here in our society. There's remnants, the cultural remnants of the colonial past. Right? So there's a post-colonial theories of state also. Feminist theories of state. Bluntschli has said that he compares state with church, and then he says that state is a masculine sex and church is a feminine sex. These are the two authorities he talks about. That means the religious authority and the authority of the state. But these are some biological theories. There's very interesting theories in terms of biological theories of state, the organic theories of state. Hegel says state is a march of God on earth. He has glorified the concept of state. When Hegel glorifies the concept of state, Then there are many, he was from Germany, and then many philosophers later on, they have their own interpretation on glorification of state, and they then give their theory of how the state can expand its power. This gave rise to what is called as the German geopolitics, of which we had some of these philosophers like Karl Hochhofer, who later on inspired Hitler. Hitler is a product of Germany because in Germany somehow there was a tradition of glorification of state. It became the breeding ground for the rise of fascism or Nazism for that matter. A very strong totalitarian state under Hitler. So you understand the world history only when your ideologies are clear. And when you learn something in world history, it will help the ideologies for you to make your political ideologies clear. So shall we look into the second part now? Let us see the section B of paper. Section B of paper 1. What is there in this? It's about politics in India, right? So when the politics starts in India, politics means that when we start to deliberate in the public space, when we start to pursue our interest in the public space, when we start to make certain demands. This is another very interesting, this is related to your historical, like how well you understand your history, especially modern history. After permanent, let's see how the interests have started to emerge in India, different interests. Politics is about pursuing interests, isn't it? So how at different point of time, different interests they were being pursued in the Indian society. First and foremost in the political space came in, I mean this is all in the modern, during the colonial times. After the permanent settlement of Bengal, which year was that? Any idea? Permanent settlement of Bengal, have you heard? Don't tell me that you haven't heard of this. Yes. Yes, yes, speak it, say it, whatever it is. Let it go wrong. 1893 you said, right? It is 1793. It's okay if you are missing it by 1 century. At least 93 is correct. I will assume that it's okay, that you have some idea. (1793) permanent settlement of Bengal, right? This brought in, like it created a new class, what was called as Zamindari class. Because earlier there used to be a system of Jagirdars in India, but British created a like permanent settlement, land rights were given, ownership of land was given by the British. With the rise of Zamindari, British were very smart in creating Zamindari as a class which will help them to pursue the British interest, isn't it? They said we are creating a class in the Indian society whose interest will be similar to our interest, so they will always support us. This Zamindari class were the first class to pursue on their interests. Then they ask the British that you give us some representation. Some of your bodies in the government give us some representation. And for that reason they started establishing, if you study your modern Indian history, the first modern organization, like political organizations, were the Zamindari associations. Landholder societies were established. This is how politics starts. After the 1857 revolt, and this was also the time after especially the opening of, this is a world event though, opening up of the Suez Canal will shorten the distance between India and Britain, so a lot of people from India, they will be able to go to Britain to study. And after study, when they come back, they bring in the democratic Western values, people like Dadabhai Naoroji, and all those moderate leaders who established the Indian National Congress to pursue the interest of the middle class intelligentsia, as we call them. The middle class. So another sectional interest comes in. They were started making some demands which were related to democracy and rights or for representation. So you need to understand that how the political process had been like during the freedom struggle. You will get a student of political science will best understand the India's freedom struggle because you will be able to see it from the political lens at the microscopic level. You will understand the strategy, the decisions, what was being done and what was being demanded and what were the interests, and then what ideologies were followed, what approaches were followed. 1861 and 1892 Councils Act. They gave some kind of representation to Indians first as a nomination, and thereby in 1892 through certain process of elections. See how politics has started to transform. They kept on asking for more and more representation. Then there is a politics of the moderates, then their methods will not yield much result, so then they will have extremist school of thought. Their ways, their approach will be very different. Their social base will be very different. Moderates will be from the higher section, like the higher middle class, and the extremists will come from the lower middle class sections. Who will be more youthful? The extremists will be more youthful, who will have more unrest among them. And then of course afterwards Gandhi will come, then it will become mass-based satyagrah, then the interests of the peasants will be taken into account, interests of the tribals will be taken into account. And then the emergence of new ideologies, especially the Communist Party, will be formed. So socialism and Marxism will have its imprint in the Indian freedom struggle. You should be able to understand who were the Marxist leaders, who were the socialist leaders, who were the liberal leaders, who were the conservative leaders. If you have understood political ideologies, then you will be able to understand which leader belonged to which political ideology. Maybe within the Congress itself there were conservatives also, there were liberals also, there were socialists also. That's why Congress was an umbrella organization. This is how political ideology helps. So essentially we are going to, basically it's about the evolution, just a second, evolution and transformation of politics in India, which starts from the British times, colonial times. So in the colonial times itself we will see various, first of all we will see the emergence of nationalism. I am just getting into a little more detail so that you have a better idea, okay? So that it is easier for you to look at the syllabus back again, understand what the subject is all about, and take your decision whether you want to pursue, whether you want to take this optional or not. So emergence of nationalism. Since when the nationalism started in India? Because this is one, new political environment. Once the nationalism emerges, and how nationalism, it strengthens itself. It's a slow process, but of course the most important event would be the establishment of Indian National Congress, 1885. But before that also there were certain nationalist surges that had started to emerge. And then what form it will take? Because nationalism is also a political ideology. Today Congress doesn't emphasize as much on nationalism, but this is not true. This is not true. BJP calls Congress and other people as anti-nationals, right? Because BJP thinks that they are the most nationalists of all the people, but that's their idea of nationalism. The idea of nationalism of BJP is different, the idea of nationalism of Congress is different. What is a nation? What do you mean by nation? Common emotions about something. Something means? No, not representation. What you said before was in fact better. Common feelings and emotions is fine. What common? Common history, ethnicity, culture, what? This is to be made clear. You see, that's why it's very important to clear your concepts, and clearing concepts get clear only by one single word. Only by one single word. One word which has to be there in the definition of nation. That is, a nation is a group of people who have a feeling of belongingness to a particular identity. Identity is the key word. That identity could be culture, it could be religion, it could be ethnicity. It could be anything. Have you got the point? That is the reason why it is so difficult to talk about India as a nation. When Rahul Gandhi had made the statement few days back, if you remember, about nationalism, I don't know if you have heard, you have to pay attention to all these statements. I mean, normal people will not even understand what he was trying to say. But whatever he said, that had a lot of meaning behind it. But the problem with this person is that he is not able to convey it properly. There is a big problem in communication. His intention may be right, but he is not able to communicate. So political communication is also very important. Are you getting the point? What is nation now? Are we a nation in India? What is our identity? What is our identity? Yeah, exactly. Our identity would be diversity itself is our identity. That's why, earlier times, Congress, the basis of nationalism for Congress is unity in diversity. For BJP, it is cultural nationalism, what they call as Hindutva. They say culture is common, but then there may be slight difference in culture, but there may be some truth there also. There may be some similarity in the culture of, pan-Indian. There may be something, like let's not say 100%, maybe 10%, 15% things is common. Like for example, all our festival is somehow related to monsoon. Monsoon is one reality which connects all of us, isn't it? That has given rise to a common culture, which may be forming the part of India as a nation. That's how we can identify what they are. But this is a big issue to be discussed, and that's why Nehru always, wherever he visited and he had a talk on nationalism, he will always ask people this question: what do you think should be the basis of our nationalism? Because for a country like India to have that basis of nationalism is a little different. For Jinnah it was very easy. Jinnah for that reason never said that Hindus and Muslims are two separate societies or religion or state. He said Hindus and Muslims are two separate nations, because for him identity was very clear, and that is religion. Right? Will you be able to give importance to every word that has been spoken and said before in the history also now? Like how meaningful everything is? NDA and UPA. Why have they named NDA and UPA the way it is? Indian National Congress, when it forms the alliance today, it throws nationalism somewhere else. I mean, it doesn't mean that in reality it throws nationalism, but the word is not used. But BJP as a party which doesn't have nationalism in its name, when it forms alliance, there's word nationalist in that. National Democratic Alliance. Ironical, isn't it? The party whose name doesn't have nationalism forms an alliance which is having national, and the other way around. But this is interesting, and this is very meaningful. I will explain you someday when I will discuss political ideology, and I'll discuss the concept of left and right and form a matrix for you to understand all the political ideas. You will understand, and you can place all the political parties in that matrix where they can be put. And then you will understand why certain terms have been used. Everything has a very strong meaning behind them. Every political, Trinamool Congress for that matter. What is Trinamool? TMC, what is Trinamool? Trinamool is a Sanskrit word for grassroots. That's grassroots democracy. Right? DMK, AIA DMK, or Bahujan Samaj. What is this Bahujan? They have a very powerful meaning behind all these terms. You can't discard. No matter a political party will be a miniature force in the system, but still the ideas are very powerful behind them. Okay? You people said we are more interested in practice. I agree with you. Practice is far more interesting. I say theory is very interesting, and practical politics is even more interesting, but it becomes even more interesting only when you are clear about the theories, when you are clear about the ideologies. Then you get real meaning behind everything. Okay? Then after we got now this will be also, you say, sectional interests. Sectional interests will be there. How different interests slowly emerged. And you will be clear when you will study modern Indian history, because the first 2 units in section B is related to history. That's modern history. That's a big overlap. In fact, you have to cover almost entire modern history. You are going to use it in political science, but with a lot of depth and analysis. There you will have to read certain, some chapters from certain books I will prescribe, which will eventually help you in your GS paper also, even more. After that we got, you see, I will say that there were some new, after independence, there will be, like say, new ideas, concepts and ideologies, political ideologies applied in the Indian context. And through what? Through constitution itself, isn't it? Constitution brings in new ideas. Socialism, democracy, republic, all the words which are used in the preamble itself. These are political concepts. Equality, justice, fraternity. Just preamble itself is loaded with all political concepts. And how we are trying to implement that. Then on the basis, so you need to know everything about constitution, preamble, right? Then how the scheme is to be implemented to DPSP because it's rights, and then duties, fundamental rights which are rights, then DPSPs which are some other forms of rights, and then fundamental duties. This is rights and duties which we have already mentioned, and equality and justice which we are implementing through the constitution. And then of course the institutions. What institutions? What institutions? First of all, the government institution. Now in government institution, what you study in your polity and the way you will study in political science, there will be a little difference. Okay? In polity, when you are studying about the process, now president's election is there, right? In polity, you are going to understand what is the process of presidential election. You will study that in your Indian polity. In political science, not only that you have to understand the process of presidential elections, but you also need to understand the politics behind it. Like for example, how political parties, they are fielding candidates. Some elections in India related to presidents were very political. There was a time when the official candidate of the Congress party, when Indira Gandhi was prime minister, there was official candidate of the Congress party was defeated by another candidate whom Indira Gandhi had supported informally. And that was the reason why Indira Gandhi was thrown out of the Congress also. There was a split in the Congress party in 1969 based on presidential election only. So there was a lot of politics then. So you will have to get into the politics behind all this. What is the politics in the legislature? You will understand legislature, parliament in your Indian polity, right? But in political science, there has to be political analysis. So there will be a slight difference, but yes, that will happen only when you have understood whatever you have learned in your Indian polity, which in a way, in a different way will be covered over here. And then we will do a lot of analysis. Have you got the point? So government is three organs and the interrelationship among the three organs, legislature, executive and judiciary. You know that there have been like wonderful ideas through some of these cases. Judiciary versus parliament. You know Keshwanand Bharati case? You must have heard. There are a series of such cases which are related to amendment of constitution and judicial review and all of that, which we have to get into details over here. In your polity, you may not get as much of detail. Here we will get into a little because it's a issues to be discussed. Okay. Then of course, the government means the central government and the state government, right? So both of them, legislature, executive and judiciary, and issues related to that. This is all overlapping with polity. Then you will have to also study about the local government, panchayats and urban municipalities, though in brief, but still you have to. And how the transformation is happening, how politics is there, how much of political empowerment is happening. There are certain elections like in West Bengal when panchayat elections are organized, there's a lot of violence. That's an issue. Then panchayats are supposed to bring better representation for the weaker section, but is it happening? Women have been given the reservation, but are they really empowered? How patriarchy is still affecting them? How local politics is affecting these institutions? How the local nexus is affecting these institutions? The issues we need to deal here. Right? In your Indian polity, you may study about the structure of panchayat and what panchayat does. But here you need to understand the issues associated with panchayats. So we will discuss that in class. We'll give you write-ups. We'll give you frameworks on that. So you have far better understanding, and all the way the questions you are dealing in political science, Those are the kinds of questions which are nowadays coming in GS paper. Have you seen the GS paper in the recent times, how analytical the questions are in the main examination? They are very analytical. So your understanding at this level here in this subject, it will help you a lot in your GS paper. Then we have the political parties, very interesting. Everything about political parties, the national political parties and the regional political parties, and we can learn it into different phases, that how one party dominated and then there is a bipolarity and then how regional parties emerged. There were two phases, like 67 I mentioned, there was another one is 1980s, early 80s. Many regional parties were established. Like in Andhra Pradesh, what was the name of the party? Established by someone from the film industry, N.T. Ramarao. You are from Andhra? No? Anyone? Telugu Desam Party? TDP? Telugu Desam Party was established in 1982 by, this was another trend in Indian politics, of filmmakers establishing political parties. That trend still continues. AIADMK, the same story. 1977, M.G. Ramachandran, he breaks away from DMK and forms his party, AIADMK. So this is a post-emergency phenomena. You see how much of political churning has happened after emergency also, and how what jolt was received by the Congress as a party when new regional parties emerged. Bahujan Samaj Party, BSP, was also formed in early 1980s by Kanchiram. 89 elections were another landmark. 84 elections had a difference. 84 elections after assassination of Indira Gandhi, Congress party got its highest majority till date. Like there were 400 plus members in the Lok Sabha. That the opposition was totally frustrated. They were helpless to do anything. In 1989 elections, we had this Bofors scandal on that issue. Then Janta Dal, this story, the past story also you get. You need to know that as well. And then we'll see that what is happening in our present times. So this is another interesting aspect. The third one is institutions which are like social institutions. Social institutions will mean that voluntary organizations, NGOs and all this voluntary work, and how the movements also you can say. See, democracy, another thing we will have to learn about is the emergence and strengthening of democracy in India, which is about, of course, the institutional mechanism, the election commission, like say elections. So you will study about elections, voting, participation of people, right? And accountability. And more than that, democracy, it's about social movements also. So there is a connect over here. How people in India, they have, resorted to streets to protest against the governments. Peaceful protests, democratic protests. And how the social movements have started. There are environmental movements, there are civil liberties movement. If you have heard of People's Union for Civil Liberties, PUCL was established by Jayaprakash Narayan after emergency. That is one of the foremost advocacy organization today. Human rights movements, tribal rights movements, child rights movements, women's movements. These movements are there in your syllabus. Had these movements not been there, democracy wouldn't have been strengthened. This is the most powerful mechanism to strengthen democracy from below. These are the things also. Then all of this, all these institutions, these new concepts, ideas, all of this is bringing in the socio-political and economic change in the Indian society, the transformation in the Indian society. We talk about green revolution, some transformation, right? Is green revolution a political issue also or not? Green revolution is not just related to agriculture or economics, it is a political issue. First of all, it's a policy issue. You have to take a policy decision, and then when green revolution is implemented, then there are a lot of negative implications. How will you deal with that? Green Revolution, some studies relate the rise of terrorism in Punjab. When it happened? Early 1980s. They see it as a result of Green Revolution. Because Green Revolution, it led to the increase in inequality. The big farmers became richer and the poorer ones became more poor. Then the youths among these sections will become easy targets. They will become more vulnerable for such mobilization for the terrorist insurgent organizations. So everything is connected. How the planning has changed India, right? The 5-year plans, all the economic policies which we have brought, how that has brought about the socio-political change, how that has impacted politics. That eventually we had to bring in a major transformation in 1991, the process of liberalization. That is another interesting political story. In fact, I will tell you some extra readings also for your interest in free time, leisure you can do, like books like India Unbound by this person. I'm not recollecting his name, I'll tell you. In that he has explained as how the within one particular evening, on one particular evening there was a meeting in which thousands of miles of red tape was cut. Basically the reforms were brought. So you have seen many a times Dr. Manmohan Singh speaking about the economic reform, saying that he had a very strong backing of Narasimha Rao, because and Narasimha Rao had told Dr. Manmohan Singh that if the economic reforms fail, then you will have to go, and if it succeeds, then all the credit will come to us. That's political, but then you have to also see the political acumen of these leaders to have carried forward those reforms. So that story also is there, which you will have to study. Economic aspects also. In that case, all these things, all these issues, right? Socio-political changes of movements, all of this is part and parcel of your post-independence history. All of it is part of your post-independence history. So there is a big overlap. This entire section B is totally overlapping with your paper 2 of GS. Entirely. Of course, whatever you will study there will help you here and vice versa. Are we clear about what is there in section B also now? And this is quite meaningful, because this is going to, this is a story of what has happened in India after independence. But for you people, politics in the center, and how politics has driven all those socio-economic and other changes. Clear? Now let us quickly look at paper 2 also. Paper 2 I will just have one framework only. Within one framework only I will explain. In paper 2 we talk about comparative politics. Why comparative politics? You have to do the comparison. Comparison among what? Among what? What you call as nation states. Okay? Can I write NS for nation state? NS1. Suppose this is one nation state. Let's say India. NS2, UK, NS3, let's say China, right? So many nation states. Basically, international relations is about relation, and when you talk about relationship, then you have to compare one country with the other. The best practices will emerge when you will compare, isn't it? You will study in India, you will study in US, you will study then only on comparison you will bring out the best practice. That's why comparative politics. It's not just a politics of one country, it's a politics of many countries, so you will have to compare. That's why there is this comparative politics. So we are comparing. Not only that we are comparing the nation states, but we are comparing the groups of nation states also. Like for example, all of this could also be seen in the form of either these countries are capitalist countries, capitalist versus socialist. So will we compare capitalist countries with socialist countries also or not? Which have succeeded more, which have succeeded less? Why there was a fall of Soviet Union? Why socialism, there was a fall of socialism altogether? Maybe socialism may re-emerge again, we never know. Why we ushered into the era of liberalization? These are the questions. Then another distinction could be made between developed countries and developing countries, developing societies. This is also a comparison. Comparative studies would be required. There are different units related to all of this. right? And when we are studying, when we are doing this comparison among the nation states, what essentially we are focusing upon? We are looking at their state also, state in comparative perspective. We are looking at government also. Some comparison, though details are not there in your syllabus. You don't have to study the governments in different countries, no. You have to study but the nature of state in different countries. Like democracy will be there in some there will be military dictatorship, in some there will be monarchies and so on. Different forms of government. But the structure of government you don't have to study. That is studied in administration, comparative studies in administration. You just have to look at the nature of state. And plus other institutions, which institutions? Like political parties, pressure groups, or even for that matter social movements, because now we are living in the global world, right? We have we are celebrating, we are trying to have some awareness like the Earth Hour and all that. The global movements against global warming or human rights. Then we can look into what's happening in developed countries, what's happening in developing countries, in capitalist countries, in socialist countries, and so on. Then also, plus I would say the systems we need to understand. What systems? The political system, social system, economic systems. Social system is like, again, the same thing. What kind of societies are they? Modern society, traditional society, developed societies, developing societies. Economies, capitalist or socialist. Then the economic change that has happened over the period of time. Not only the political, economic change will drive the political changes. You must have heard about this Bretton Woods conference. Establishment of these IMF, World Bank, and then after that we had these general agreements on trade and tariff, GATT. So from GATT we started to talk about the trade relationship among countries till the establishment of WTO in 1995. So this entire story you need to know, the economic aspect and the international relations in that. This will help, there are overlaps with economics. Whatever you will study here as part of WTO will help a lot in your external affairs in economics, external sector. So we say from GATT, or better say Bretton Woods to GATT to WTO, this entire story. This is like the part of economic system. Whatever is happening in the world, this is all about the conduct of, I would say, conduct of international relations, right? This is where the nations are interacting, nation states are interacting, but what is also there is United Nations and its agencies. They are also playing a role. Then you have the regional organizations, trading blocs. These are some new frameworks which have emerged, which is impacting international relations. This is also there in your syllabus. Then conduct of these international relations, you will have to see that in different phases. What are the phases? Phases could be pre-Cold War times, Cold War times, post-Cold War times, and the recent contemporary times. Isn't it? So different phases could be, let's say, pre-Cold War. Pre-Cold War will be very brief for us. Cold War, post-Cold War. You understand Cold War, right? And then, like you can say LPG, liberalization, globalization, privatization, and the recent times, what is happening? What is happening today? What polarity is there? Is it bipolar, multipolar, unipolar? What type of world is it? Some analysis has to be there, and we should be able to foresee as to how things will happen, what will happen, who will become the superpower. Geopolitics will also get involved there. Then here you will have, this will become very interesting because you will have to read some analytical write-ups will circulate from Word Focus and all those magazines. As part of, now you see when we are doing comparative, this is about politics, is what we say comparative politics, or you can say studies, right? For what purpose? Now there will be theories and approaches to study them also. Theories. Here in the theories there will be concepts. Concepts to explain the realities of the world. How will you explain what is happening? Like India, if it has to pursue its interest, what concept do we have to focus on? What are the concepts? Concept is of national interest, isn't it? We have to take care of national interest, national power. What makes a country more powerful? What are the factors that makes a country powerful? You will find that only those countries, someone has said this, we will see the theoreticians, only those countries can become powerful, those who have the capacity of producing food for their own people. If you are dependent for food on other countries, you will not be able to become powerful. Then there are many other factors. I just mentioned one of it. So there are determinants of national power. National security. What are the determinants? What are the components? What are the manifestations of national security? And you say balance of power. I don't know if you have heard of this term, balance of power. Many countries coming together, either, or there is like, no, some countries they balance their power in a way that there is a peace and stability, because everyone knows that the other country is also powerful, so you will not be showing any aggression. Undue aggression will not be there. Like there was a phase of balance of power in Europe before the First World War. There were times when there was some stability in Europe. And then we have this deterrence principle, you understand? Like if I have become nuclear, we are nuclear country, Pakistan is also nuclear, now we are not going to war. So nuclear weapons are acting as deterrence. It is helping us to avoid war. Otherwise there would have been 2 wars we have fought by now after 1971. Going by our historical records. These are the concepts which we need to understand in detail. And then on the basis of these concepts, and on the basis of the theories and approaches, we will determine Indian foreign policy. Because India will pursue its own interests and obligations. How it will achieve its national security, national interest, achieve national power, show some deterrence. All these things will be used to set the foreign policy goals. And then certain principles also, like the principles which were established by Nehru earlier, but a lot of principles have changed over the period of time. There is what we call as a continuity and changes in foreign policy. In fact, this is something which is very interesting when you divide the entire, period after independence into various phases and study, okay, foreign policy had this nature in this phase, then it changed, and then it changed, and so on. What are the landmark events which will drive those changes? Like example for that matter, landmark events in the foreign policy in India would be what? 1962 war is one of them. 1971 war is another one of them, because what we lost in 62, we regained back to some extent in 71, our pride, at least regional level. India was declared as a regional power for the first time after 1971 by USA itself. India is a regional power. And then 1998, the nuclear weapons state we became. Economic reforms will also be a landmark, 1991, because we will revise our foreign policy, because we have to balance equations. In fact, in 1971, before that war, India also signed a treaty of friendship with Russia, with Soviet Union then. So there was a tilt, when Indira Gandhi's time, there was a tilt towards Soviet Union. When Mr. Morarji Desai became the Prime Minister, then their foreign policy goal was a neutral non-alignment. They says that we will bring in genuine non-alignment, because they were accusing Indira Gandhi of tilting towards Soviet Union. Indira Gandhi comes back to power, again there will be revisions, right? With the change at the helms, that means the change of leadership and the change of party, there is changes in the foreign, slight changes. But maybe the basic ethos remains the same. Certain principles have remained intact over the period of time. You need to understand what remains intact throughout, what is changing, what is static, what is dynamic, what is fluid, or what may be gaseous also. Are we getting it? See, there are different ways of doing the analysis also. There are powerful analytical tools which you will get slowly empowered later on. First, you need to understand basics. First, you need to cover the syllabus, and slowly your ability to analyze will be slowly, through application it will improve. Then question and answer. Question and answer is not a big deal here. and we will discuss a lot of question answer in the class, because ultimately your entire knowledge have to be produced, right? You have to qualify the exam, you need to score well, so you need to be writing good answers. So I'll just tell you, give you a brief. This is more or less about paper 2, right? These are the aspects. I haven't got into too much detail on that. You can just see the syllabus as to what all is there. Now, have you got some idea about what all is there, what you are going to study as part of this subject? Please go back, see the syllabus again. Try to look into certain areas where I haven't got into more details. Broadly, framework is this. If you have any question, you can ask me from the centers, online students, any question. Otherwise, I will now brief you two things. I have to brief you. One is about the course, and second is about the relationship with GS and how this paper will help you, which anyhow some understanding has come to you. Yes. Any question? How are you feeling? Intimidated? Or feeling some joy is there? Come on, say something at least, ask some question. What books you have to read? Okay, books, I will tell you about the course itself, what we are doing, and then of course, if in any case some of you want to study by yourself, then I'll tell you. Books also, though one problem is with books is that books are not very well organized. That's a big problem. Not as per the demand of the, for paper 2, in international relations, there used to be a very good book earlier, which was entirely on the basis of your syllabus of UPSC. But that publication has stopped since 2014. Now you don't have that book. Some of you may be lucky enough to get the older edition also, you should get it. Okay, though it may not be updated, but somehow it will help you to cover some topics. But then I don't think it will be required, because the way we will be, if you are part of the class, you won't require it, because we will give you all the required literature, material, everything. Nothing to say, nothing to question. What is the takeaway? At least tell me that. Have you learned something? You have. Politics is clear at least. What is politics? What is political? Right? And then of course, like, what is the, the intensity of the topics, how it is related to everything else, their relevance in your world. A lot happening today in the current affairs. Better current affairs you will better understand only when you know the background, when you know the theories, when you know the concepts. Then you can analyze even the current affairs even better, based upon that political. And see, I consider political science to be the foundation of all the sciences. Why I consider that is because if I will have to give advice, like suppose some person is there who wants to learn all the social sciences, in case, I'm not talking about UPSC per se, so I will give an advice that first you should study political science, because political science is the one which lays the best of foundations. Then after that you can easily understand it, because you understand politics means everything what is politically correct is clear to us. It brings the best of understanding, even for that matter understanding economics, understanding of society, understanding of philosophy, everything will be more. Philosophy will be on the other side, you will get more deeper into abstractness. But that's the beauty of this subject, that it forms the very foundation of the understanding of the human world, right? And for that reason, in one of the sessions, maybe in the basic session itself, I would see that how what is to be covered. We need to understand some of ideas related to modes of production also, because that will bring us, it will help us to see that how the political ideas have slowly emerged. Okay, so now let me just quickly tell you about the course. Okay, so we have this course which will be starting from 26th of July. You still have some time. We will be starting from 26th of July. For the first month, the classes would only be 3 days in a week, and from the second month onwards, it will be 5 days a week. So we will be covering the syllabus, let's say from 26th July if we start, we will cover the syllabus though we still haven't, finalized the planner, but I hope so. It will be somewhere in between 30th, from 30th December to 15th January. In between that, any time in between that, your course will get over. So it will take around 5 months. Okay, so first month we will go a bit slow, right? Because we'll give you time to settle down, give you some readings and all that. And then afterwards we'll go a little faster. 5 classes every week. Is that clear? Overall there will be around 95 to 100 sessions. Okay? You want less, you want more? More? You should always say you want less, because it's about like how much maximum we can learn within minimum time. But the problem is that we still have to cover the entire thing, whatever is there, except for maybe some minor issues which we will empower you and give you frameworks, and then details you can study through the handouts we will give. But most of the issues will be covering in the class. 95 to 100 sessions, there are 3 faculty who will be covering, okay, all these areas. I will be taking up most of the theoretical areas, okay. Section A entirely of paper 1, okay. I will take some portions of section B also, and then some portions of section A of paper 2, which is theoretical. Overall, I will be taking, let's say, somewhere around 60%, say around 55 to 60, let's say 55 to 60% of class I will be taking. Okay, 60% around classes I will be taking. Then we have Dr. Smita, who's an expert in Indian government and politics. She will be taking around 22 to 23 sessions. And the third person is Mr. D. Arya, who is an expert in law, international law, and he has expertise in international relations. So he will be taking most of the areas of foreign policy with you, right? Indian foreign policy and some areas. So let's say some portions of section A of paper 1 and Indian foreign policy, that is section B. So he will also be taking, let's say, around 20 sessions. Is that clear? So maybe in the initial sessions, when we are having the foundation itself, they may just come and interact with you also, so that you get an idea, because we are working as a team, and because different people have different expertise, which should maximize things for you, right? But one thing is clear is that, one thing should be very clear is that we will stick to the standards, which is of prime most important to me at least, right? I'm telling you that I cannot see that any of the sessions is not creating or generating as much of value for you. All 95 sessions should generate as much of value for you. All the sessions should be as powerful for you, and you also will have to contribute. Because if you are laid back, if you are not putting what is required from your side, then it will be a difficulty. Is that clear? But we will tell you exactly how things are to be done, right? Along with the classes, right? Classes will be 2.5 hour duration. Timing of the class will be 2 to 4:30. Okay, you will get a planner, detailed planner for the entire batch. Along with that, classes, we will give every detail, what all is going to be covered, which day. There may be some minor changes, maybe because when we progress with the, it depends also upon your speed of comprehending. Sometimes we increase 1 or 2 classes in between, sometimes we decrease 1 class in some area, right? Depending upon how we are moving all together. So in that case, there may be slight change in the planner, which will give you a revised planner in between, somewhere in the middle of the session. Then along with the classes, you are going to get the booklets, which will cover the entire syllabus. You can totally rely on that material, okay? But I am one person who always tell the aspirants or the learners that you should have certain books also with you. Books for me are for reference purpose. Use books as reference. Like for example, one thing is very clear, that in all our classes, whether I am taking the classes or Dr. Smita is taking the class or Mr. D. Arya is taking the class, all those people will ensure that your full notes are prepared in the class itself. Okay? You will get strong frameworks, notes will be prepared in the class itself. Right? We will write a lot on the board in a very structured format. Today's session was a random session, but otherwise it will be all structured. Whatever we will write, you will write down. And why you see that? Why it helps to write down? Because when you are noting down also alongside, this is like a reinforcement of your understanding, because you remember things. And it will be well synchronized with the explanation. So it will go. You will not even get to know that when are you writing, when are you not writing, listening, understanding. It will be all synchronized. And we generally avoid dictations in the class. Okay? We generally avoid dictations in the class. But sometime, if something very analytical is to be written, like 2-3 lines in between, right? Then I'll dictate. Because if you have to write something analytical, I will not leave it to you that you will be able to write. I may dictate also. But most of the things will come in an organized frameworks. Right? What is required for you to remember, and the expressions will also be self-explanatory. Notes will be helpful for you to even write your answers. Because otherwise when you are studying from books, everything is haywire. Nothing is organized in books. I mean, if you look at the syllabus of UPSC and you look at the books and then randomly you will turn pages in this book and the other book, nothing is organized. That's a big problem. And this is true for all the optionals. Not only this. But there your booklets, the material which will be given to you will be helpful. Like you remember everything, whatever we have discussed in the class, and then go back and read that from the booklet also. In the booklet, whatever we have explained a lot more, certain things will be given a little more in an explanatory format in those booklets. And the books will be used only for reference purpose, means that for filling the gaps. Suppose I have discussed some topics with you in the class. You have studied the booklet also. Still you feel like, okay, let me read that chapter also. Read the chapter from book also. Not every chapter. Maybe certain areas where you are not getting the confidence. Right? But you will definitely get the confidence. You leave everything to me to bring the best of understanding for you as far as this subject is concerned. The moment we will cover section A of paper 1, see section A of paper 1, section A of paper 1 is the heart and soul of the entire syllabus. If this much is clear, everything will be clear. This is not 50%, sorry, not 25% of the entire syllabus. I say this is like 50% of the entire syllabus. It is that important. Everything is based upon this understanding. All these theories. Even if you cover this much, I know you will have enough empowerment that you can deal by yourself also. I mean, just telling you, though you don't have to do that. But that's the power of section A of paper 1. So you will be using the books for reference purpose. What are the books? You want the name of the books also right now? Yes? No, see, it's something which can be circulated also, which we can post also if you want, or those who are interested. In the class anyhow I will discuss, I will tell also, I mean every day when we are covering I can tell you also extra readings, please go and read this chapter from this book. You don't have to read the entire books, you will have to do selective readings, right, for strengthening your concepts. The one book which you should read, and maybe you can start reading also by now, first you will cover the NCERT, right? Your polity NCERT, one NCERT, that is political theory also you will cover, and then Indian government and politics. So all the political science NCERTs, okay, of 11th and 12th. This much you can just read before the classes starts. Another one wonderful book, the best book, I consider it, I don't know whether it is the best book or not, but people who are preparing for UPSC and within limited time frame, one book which brings the best of understanding, it's a wonderful book, I have found it to be very good, is Political Theory by O.P. Gaba. Okay, Political Theory by O.P. Gaba. This is a must book, though you know in your notes we are covering from the best of sources everything, so everything is just there in your notes. Even if you will just cover your booklets, class notes and booklets, suffice. But I always recommend to read a little more literature because it will empower you in terms of improving your language, your expression, your understanding. A little more readings is always helpful. We will also circulate certain articles from Word Focus and EPW, right, and other sources also, some more analytical write-up, which you may study afterwards. Once the course gets completed, then you can read some extra articles also. We will do some demonstrations also. I can do some demonstration in the class also. Demonstration in the sense that newspaper articles, how you have to study, how you have to, what is important, how will you identify that. Even for articles, we can do some demonstration in the class. I will ask you to read the article and mark important lines, and then I will tell you what are the important lines, and see that how much your lines are matching with my lines. So you have to develop a sense of judgment with respect to content, what is important and what is not. All of you know that in the beginning, everything would seem to be very important, right? If I'll ask you to underline, you will almost underline every line. But as you have learnt and more and more and more, you will be able to, you'll understand, okay, this much I already know. So I know what is to be underlined, what I don't know. That is what is more important. This will evolve slowly. Okay, then there is another book which I will recommend for you people let's say there is a book by Politics, okay, Politics by Haywood. Now this may not, some people would say that this is not directly related to syllabus, but then of course there will be selective chapters in this book which will be very relevant for you to study. I'm just telling you the name of the books. Political Thought by Sushila Ramaswamy. Sushila Ramaswamy, S. Ramaswamy. There is a political thought book by C.L. Vapor also, if you want to refer. C.L. Vapor. This will be readily available though in the market. And there is a book, the best book generally prescribed is Sabine. But Sabine is a very complicated, I mean, it's better you don't study from Sabine. We would include everything important from that book in our literature. Anyhow, you don't have to worry about these books, or only for reference purpose, right? Secondary. Those who are part and parcel of the class, you don't have to worry much. He will tell you. But then in case if you are doing it by yourself, then you can refer some of these books. There's a book also by Andrew Haywood's books are very good actually. There's a book, Political Ideology, also by Andrew Haywood, which is a wonderful book. Okay. So political in case, but this will be a quite elaborate a literature, Political Ideology by Haywood. But some people may not find that this is quite elaborate, so you can do again selectively. Maybe you can refer one or two more important like liberalism, socialism and conservatism you can study. Rest of the things you may not study also. It depends what is more important, can be done selectively. These are for paper, these are for section A. For section B, you see, for section B, one book which you can take is Indian Government and Politics by Fadia and Fadia. Fadia and Fadia. This is one book which covers most of the areas of section B. But anyhow, you have this Bipin Chandra book also, no? Which you will be studying for your post-independent history. Bipin Chandra, which is India after independence or India since independence. There are two books by, one is Freedom Struggle, not Freedom Struggle. But Freedom Struggle is also useful because history is also there. But this one is must. So from both these books, most of the areas will get covered. There is the recently the Paul Brass has died. I mean, foremost political scientist whose book India Since Independence, Politics in India Since Independence. That's another good book, okay, by Paul Brass. I can recommend books, extra books also. This is Politics in India Since Independence by Paul Brass. Then for paper 2, Globalization of Word Politics. This is a very elaborate book. Again, reference selective readings. That also will be told to you what to do, what not to do, okay, by Bayliss and Smith. There's an Oxford Handbook on Indian Foreign Policy. You can note this down. There are various contributions. Oxford Handbook on Indian Foreign Policy, which will be useful for foreign policy. Then there is a book on theories on international relations by Mahendra Kumar. But I won't say don't buy this book, okay. This may be, if required, we can give you something, maybe some write-ups, some important pages, chapters from this also. Otherwise, anyhow, we will integrate in the class notes. But if you are studying by yourself, then you can think of buying this book also. Because in international, relations, the one good book as such, it will be difficult for you. There's another book on international relations by V. N. Khanna. And last one. Now, don't think of buying all the books, okay? Don't think about buying all the books. I will just repeat what exactly you can do. IR by V. N. Khanna. And then there is a book by V.P. Dutt on Indian Foreign Policy. Indian Foreign Policy by V.P. Dutt. So foreign policy I have told you two, right? Oxford Handbook and a book by V.P. Dutt. Maximum. You can take International Relations by V. N. Khanna. This one you can take. Bayliss and Smith I recommend, because in case if you are really interested as a student, then selective readings from Bayliss and Smith will help you. It's a very good book. Theories on IR by Mahendra Kumar, you can drop that book for now. No need to buy that. Mostly things will get covered from V. N. Khanna and Bayliss and Smith. Okay. So those of you who will be part of the class, then you don't have to worry anything about better you don't buy books right now, because along with the class we will tell you, okay. Those of you who are studying by yourselves, you people can think about what books are required from this for you. Is that clear? You are clear about the course also? So notes is clear to you, booklets and notes are clear. That is our approach. Our approach will be something which is to, you have seen that, right? The way my approach would be like is to clear all the concepts. Every word is important. Don't take it for granted that you know it. Even for that matter, politics. And everything could be explained more and more. And you should develop this ability. When you develop the ability first of explanation and then of analysis. That's what is required. So all the required skill, whether it is how to produce the answer, write the answer writing skills, we'll have some extra sessions in between along with the class itself. Like, let's say after having covered some classes, I will start discussing question answer. I will tell you how to structure question answer first. I'll give you assignments. So regular assignments will be given to structure the question answer, and then we will write the answers also. I'll tell you how the answers need to be written. There is an art and science of answer writing also which will be discussed. How to write introductions, how to write conclusions in the answers. Then the assignments will be regularly given to you. You'll have to write, like as a test we will be posting, right? So as a test you will get certain questions, assignments you will submit, you will be given marks on that, and then there will be few unit wise tests also, like section A gets completed, there will be one test, full-fledged test, okay? Then this is how like 4 to 5 tests overall will be there. Apart from that, there will be all these assignment tests in between, right? So that you improve your writing skills, analytical skills also alongside. So this will go hand in hand. That's about the course. How it helps in GS, I think is more or less clear to you. Paper 2 of GS paper, you have seen the entire paper 2. Whatever you study there is going to help you here. Whatever you are studying in section B as also in foreign policy, because and even international organization, you see all international organizations are also there in paper 2. Bilateral, entire paper 2, it will help you. But yes, in this section B, things will become a little more political. So you have to also analyze them politically. That you will be empowered with how you have to do it. Then in paper 1, there are a lot of overlaps. World history. You see all the ideologies are mentioned there. And world historical events are required to understand even politics. Without understanding Renaissance, Reformation, Industrial Evolution, how will you understand all these political thinkers? In their context, background, we will discuss all of that also. Same will go in international relations. It is said that, it is generally said that history is past politics and politics is the history in the making. Isn't it? So whatever you are studying in history, it is related to politics and vice versa. Though this was a simplified statement, after all history is not just political, but political history is the mainstream history. Then there is cultural, economic, administrative and other aspects also. But political history is mainstream. So a lot of overlap in paper 1, even society, Indian society like communalism and secularization of society. There is issues related to women, because women movement is there in your syllabus. So a lot of issues and social justice also there will be overlap. See the syllabus, figure it out. What are the overlaps in social issues in world history? Overlap in entire paper 2. In paper 3 also there may be few overlaps like land reforms. Okay, political economy of India, economic reforms, liberalization, planning, all of this will be there as part of paper 3 related to economics. Then paper 4, when you are studying about philosophers, in your ethics paper, you are going to study about philosophers and thinkers. So many of them you would already covered in your political philosophy, like Aristotle and Plato and all their ideas. It's just that it will be another, in ethics paper, there will be slightly more philosophical content also related. But I try to cover that philosophical content even in these classes because it will help you to understand better the political content. Clear? So will you do one exercise today? Please go back, look at the syllabus in detail once again of political science and IR, look at the syllabus of GS and see the overlaps also. Have a better understanding. You can take down my number also in case if you have any questions, you can WhatsApp me, maybe if required more elaboration, you can call me afterwards also, we'll discuss. Yes. Test series is a separate program. Now this time we are not having the test series, like it will be happening next year for you people. Not now. Are you writing mains this year? No, then it's not required. First you cover this. Along with the classes there will be tests, no? So first you cover that. After that, once you have covered the syllabus, then you think about joining the test series. Okay? It will not be useful right now. Will not be useful. But you will have done enough of answer writing practice. Enough of answer writing practice. But you know what? The problem is that, the problem is from student side most of the times. I feel that. We give a lot of assignments, we give a lot of tests, but people are not writing, they are not submitting. Will you also be like that? Will you be like that only? I mean, it's good for us. We will have to evaluate lesson copies. Please don't do that. Please be sincere, right? Like, try to maximize in terms of learning, whether it is in the class, outside the class. I don't feel good at the end of it once, you are not writing as many answers. I feel bad about it. Any other question you have? Now you should have at least some question. Yes. Have you done the other workshop? You have. What do you think now? Okay. You are still not able to get a clarity about the difference between the two. Overlapping with GS. This is not non-factor here. Non-factor. You see, even if suppose I would say that political science has 60% overlap and PubAd has 55% overlap. But you are more interested in PubAd. So what should you take? PubAd. So there is only slight difference only. Okay, and I cannot tell you the figure which is more or which is less. But overall, I mean, I said this in that workshop also, in the workshop on PubAd also, I had said the same thing. That political science, it has maximum overlap with GS paper. Because your bilateral, you see, even in prelims also, there are so many questions on international organization. Have you seen the paper this year? There are many questions on international organizations and affairs. Then along with that, there is a question of Indian polity. Okay. So I think that political science and IR, it helps maximum in the GS paper. Then PubAd will come, but then the difference may be small only, but still, this is what I feel. Essay paper also it will help you, but essay paper, the optionals which helps best in essay paper is philosophy, psychology and sociology. After that, political science and public administration. Because you bring in one way, political science and PubAd is helpful because they are more multidimensional, especially PubAd is even more multidimensional. So that brings, you will be able to bring in more dimensions while you write. But see, you have to take a decision on the basis of what subject is bringing more interest to you. If you are interested, really interested in learning a subject, then there will be a drive, motive. Yeah, you can sustain. Though if you'll ask me, every subject is interesting, it's fine. But one thing also you should make it clear that once you decide an optional, please stick to it. Okay, it's not that today you decided and after 10 days, no, I am not sure about this, I'll have to change my optional, and after 10 days again you are just moving here and there. This should not happen. Once you have taken the decision, decide and then remain firm. It will happen through that optional. You see, every optional, someone or the other, they are clearing. You see, toppers in economics also, people are getting good ranks now. What's the big deal? The deal is to implement. Now there's a relationship between politics and public administration. On that note, I can end this like someone has said that, I mean, someone who's like from public administration realm says, let the fools contest what be the form of the government. Okay, let the fools contest what be the form of the government. Whatever is administered best is the best. Have you got the point? So don't contest about what optional you have to take. Whatever option you take, you implement it properly. Okay, thank you so much. See you all.